Hey everybody, I'm Jay.
And I'm Jared.
And today on Mentor Minutes, we're going to be talking about another top 10 topic. But before we get into that, if you've not checked out the Gateway Network, make sure you do that. We're a member of the Gateway Network. We also have, the Gateway Network has lots of different contributors that basically are in the board game or board game adjacent space.
These are other content creators. Yeah. You'll find them either on Instagram, other YouTubers and things like that. They have other podcasts. In fact, the network was started by a podcast, the Gamecasters.
Yep.
So definitely check out the website, thegatewaynetwork.com, to find out more.
All the contributors.
More of these contributors and just some great new, upcoming board game people.
Yes, absolutely. And
all of them are really nice.
And also don't forget to check out the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel, where you're going to find all kinds of unboxings, tutorials, interviews with designers, which we've got a couple of those coming up.
We do. And
a few other features, as well as the video for these podcasts are also posted there.
Yep. So this is, I guess, what you would call a vodcast, because we do a video version that goes onto the YouTube channel, so you can see what we look like, and I try to throw up images of the box art and stuff like that. But this also, the audio streams, out to everywhere you would be able to listen.
Anywhere you can pay for your podcasts.
Or free.
Does anybody ever pay for podcasts? I don't know.
I really don't know.
They do. I don't know.
And I don't know what qualifies, it's like, oh, we've reached a point in our quality that we're going to be able to charge.
We can charge you an episode.
I mean, who does that?
I don't know. I guess maybe like with XM satellite radio, maybe like Spotify has some like premium podcasts or something.
I don't know.
Who knows?
It just seems, I don't know. It seems too much.
It seems too much, and I would not pay.
I like the fact that it's open entry and anyone can kind of do this. And if you're good, then you get followers and listeners.
Yeah, democratization.
Which is why we have none. Moving on.
Love you, Mom. So another top 10 list today.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce what the list is?
This was an interesting list. You sent me this topic, and I was like, okay, there's a few offhand that I know I want to include, but then the rest, it really got a little tricky. It's the top 10 abstract games.
Right.
And abstract is a very nebulous term, because there's so many games that are really about how functional they are and the way you manipulate the game, but they might have a theme with it too. And it's like, how far or how much of that theme integration is enough to make it not abstract. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, I didn't have trouble putting a lot of games on the list to narrow down, but sort of making that decision of like, where do you draw that line was tough. Because like, if I think of a game like checkers, to me, clearly abstract. There's like no debate. There's no theme. Even chess, even though chess, you have a king and queen, and it's like a war and a battle. It's still, there's no real theme, right? So chess to me is an abstract game.
But I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, but you start getting close to, like, I actually wrote down some examples.
Okay, of things that didn't make the cut.
Of in my mind, I think these are games.
Not abstract enough.
Yeah, I think these games, a lot of people probably would consider them abstract games. But for me, maybe diving into why I wouldn't think of them as abstract.
What's funny is if any on your list is on my top 10, and then we're going to have a problem.
And I think that's why this list is so like subjective.
Yeah.
Because, I know, like, just to example, like, you and I played both Dune Imperium and Arnak.
Yes, Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Which get compared a lot, even though they really shouldn't get compared a lot.
Well, they came out around the same time, and they both have deck building and worker placement.
Yeah, but like the feel of those games is like completely different, right?
Yeah.
But for me, like, I felt a lot of the theme in Dune Imperium. A lot of other people didn't, and a lot more people actually that we played with felt there was way more theme in Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Right.
And so I think some of the way that you view games as a game player is going to sort of color your view of whether game's abstract or not. So so like, just to give you an example, right?
Sure, hit me with them.
Through the Desert. Through the Desert is, again, one of my favorite designers, Ryan Knizia. It's a game that many people would consider abstract, where everybody has their own caravan of camels. What you're trying to do is do kind of like area control on a board by building your camels in a straight line.
That's very thematic.
Yeah, well, it is very thematic in my opinion.
I'm just kidding.
But really, it didn't even have to be camels. Like you could literally play the game with just cubes Yeah, making a line
network
and
building.
Sectioning off parts of the board to score points. But the fact that you've got camels, there's oases, there's palm trees on the board. To me, it still feels a little thematic when I'm playing it, so I didn't include it.
That also reminds me of a game like Ishtar. Have you played this?
No, I've heard of this one.
Yeah, and it's really toes that line of like it looks beautiful, once you start getting all these gems and palm trees out on the board, but it also is thematic because like you're growing this garden in the desert, and it's like maybe at first it looks abstract and then later it becomes thematic because of how much starts to grow. Yeah,
and that is very similar in my mind to like photosynthesis. Like photosynthesis, I kind of think of it like an abstract game.
Yep.
But everything you're doing fits the theme of that game.
It does.
Perfectly. So for me,
that's just nature. Yeah. Like, that's how nature works.
So I didn't include that on my list, which normally I would have, because it was I think the mechanisms were so tied to the theme, I couldn't imagine that being another game.
Right.
In a way.
I would completely agree with that.
And my last example, and this one is interesting to me.
Okay.
King Domino, to me, is an abstract.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because if you're just lining up squares and you're trying to make territories and things.
You could color dominoes and make the same game.
Yes, but Queen Domino adds a few more elements where you've got you're earning money for territories. You can use that money to buy building upgrades. Expand your territory. There's like a dragon that you can like burn down buildings. There's knights that you can send out to do different things. Still abstract, but like there's enough theme in Queen Domino that I kind of don't consider that an abstract. So it's funny, like when I was thinking of those games,
right? That is interesting.
How that little bit of extra theme kind of injection, to me made it like cross the line.
Well, what about if you played King Domino with the expansion, Age of Giants?
Like the Giants? Still, it's almost like a catch-up mechanism a little bit, and a way to kind of, it's almost like having a movable like crown for point scoring in a way. So, yeah, to me, it just doesn't put it quite over the line, whereas Queen Domino has a lot of extra stuff in there.
I'll have to play Queen Domino again and make my decision.
Yeah, it is very good. So that was the challenge for me, is really thinking through this and saying, boy, maybe there is enough theme here that it would put me over the edge. But let's see where we get to. And,
I think my 10 you'll find are all pretty squarely in that abstract arena. But you're welcome to challenge any of them, and we'll see.
I think I might have one or two that kind of lean a little bit towards thematic, but we'll see what you think too. And I bet you we do have some crossovers here.
We probably will.
Yeah, I bet we do, because there's some really great abstract games.
So I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's look at our top 10.
Number 10.
So one of the ways I made my list was a lot of times like games like card games, just by virtue of the fact that if it's only done with a deck of cards, it's hard for me to get a lot of theme out of that, even though there's certainly a lot of great deck builders that are thematic, or they work alongside a board, or, cards are a mechanism of the game itself. So I kind of avoided card games for that reason, because it was sort of a fine line for me to cross. However, there's a game that doesn't use any cards at all, but it's semi-based on a card game. And instead of it being a card game, you're using these building blocks, and the game is Pyramid Poker.
Pyramid Poker.
And
number 10.
This is my number 10. What I really like about Pyramid Poker is you actually have these wooden blocks that have each of the poker suits of cards on the block itself. So you've got 52 blocks, and you've got 2 jokers, just like regular deck of cards. But the symbol for the suit and the not the power, the number, suit and the value is only printed on one side. And so you have a board where you're actually stacking these blocks on top of each other. So you take a turn, you stack a block with the suit facing you. Your opponent sits on the other side of the table, and they stack a block from their pile, because you each get 15 blocks out of the full set randomly. They stack a block either on top of your block or next to it that's facing them. And the way that the board's built is you actually build this pyramid. So it's not like a vertical wall. You have to span, the ones on top above 2 underneath them.
Got it.
Once you've built this pyramid, you then take turns removing the blocks off the pyramid and putting those blocks into 3 different sets to form a poker hand in each of those sets. And the way you win the game is once you've taken all the blocks back out of the pyramid, whoever has won 2 of those sets out of 3, it's because they have a more powerful hand of cards, wins the game. But the thing I really like about this game, other than the fact that you've got this whole sort of tactile element, is you can pull any block you want off of that pyramid.
What if it falls?
Well, it's not a dexterity game, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
You know, but sorry, what I mean is any block that is exposed. So as long as there's not something on top of it.
Okay.
So you might be just blindly picking a block that your opponent placed, have no idea what's on the other side of that block, but because what you're trying to get that you stack there is lower down or whatever, you're just hoping and praying that it's something that you can use. And sometimes you'll really mess your opponent up. Sometimes you'll get exactly the card the block you want to make that set. And it's just a really creative way of using a mechanism like poker, but with this sort of stacking element and this sort of press your luck almost style.
So are there 52 blocks?
Yeah, there are. But each opponent only takes 15 out of the 52.
So you can't even bank on seeing everything.
Right. So you're absolutely not going to see everything in there. So you're just hoping, okay, of the 15 I originally got, okay, maybe I can form flush or I can form a full house with this.
If your opponent doesn't take it.
Yeah, if your opponent doesn't take it, because they can take your blocks too. And
this is only a 2-player game?
It's only 2-player. Yeah, so it's a really cool game that, like I said, I wouldn't include poker because it's a card game, but the fact that this really mixes poker with the stacking element and some of these other mechanisms make this, I think, a fantastic 2-player game. It's actually one of my favorite 2-player games. So for
that
me,
or Lost Cities?
Oof, that's a tough one because they both. I like them very, very much about the same.
Really?
Lost Cities has a lot more tension.
More theme, maybe?
It probably does have more theme, actually. Lost Cities has more theme.
Yeah.
But I think Pyramid Poker is one of those games that plays a lot faster.
Yeah.
So you typically could play like 3 games in a row and just play like best out of 3.
Wow.
Which typically happens when I play this game.
Sure.
So Pyramid Poker, my number 10.
Very cool. Now you mentioned the poker you wouldn't include because it's a card game. I mean, poker is an abstract game.
It totally is. For me, it was just like, I felt like I could almost put this whole list, make it out of card games.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think by their nature, card games are abstract.
Yeah, unless there's, unless you're using cards, like maybe Magic isn't as abstract, maybe.
It's still abstract.
Maybe.
Because, you have to use your imagination on what everything's doing.
Yeah, what's that other game that's just got reprinted out that Plaid Hat came out with? It's because you use cards as well. I was going to say not Mage Wars, is it? Maybe it's Mage Wars.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but what these are, they're like square cards that you put on a board, and they're like your characters that you tactically move and fight each other. Summoner Wars, that's the game. Summoner Wars. So in that case, you're using cards, but it's like super thematic. So yeah, for me, I just wanted to avoid it and stick with mostly tabletop games, and so Pyramid Poker, is why it made my number 10.
Well, my number 10 has a similar type of feel to Pyramid Poker, actually, because there are blocks that are stacked and you remove them.
Okay. It's the same game.
It's not the same game.
I don't think you played Pyramid Poker.
No.
Yeah.
If it's a game on your list, I haven't played it. Pretty much.
Cut me deep.
That's how it's been. No, this is it uses tiles from like Mahjong, and it's called Dragon Castle.
Yeah, it's great.
This is a great game. It came out just a few years ago. This is a command game from Eric Lang. I believe he made this, didn't he?
I'm not sure. You might be right.
I know it's a command game. And all the tiles are arranged according to one of the patterns that, either based on player count or like a specialized, arrangement.
Setup or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and so they're stacked up to 3, usually up to 3 tall. And, you can take ones that have 2 edges exposed, and you're placing them on your own personal little city board. And as you get groups of the same color together, then you can, on your turn, flip them over to score them. And the more in that group that you flip over at that time gives you a bigger point bonus, and also allows you to put the rooftops on some of them. Now, there's it's up to 4 players. What's really cool is that, as you're placing these tiles, you can, when you flip them over, you can build on top of that, and they can connect to anything on any level that's around it still. And you can either place them, to try to go for the higher points by being taller, or, just try to spread out and get the most large group scoring, because you get final in-game scoring points for the rooftops that you've built and what level that they were placed.
Right.
But essentially, it's very abstract. There's different power cards that are available that, each game you play, each player will be able to use that ability, and that sort of thing. It's not Mahjong, but it's got the tiles that look like Mahjong. And if you've played the old computer game that came with maybe Windows,
Windows,
they called it Mahjong, but that also wasn't real Mahjong.
Yep.
But it's one where it's kind of like that, where you you collect pairs of things that you're trying to remove and reveal the floor, essentially. But this, you don't have to necessarily reveal the floor, and it doesn't even have to be fully empty to end the game. But anyway, it's a really fun game, and I thought this is a good number 10, for my list.
Yeah, I love this game. And if you like that, like if you've played Azul and you like that tactical feel of those
They're
tiles,
pretty heavy.
Yeah, I think this game is even a better table presence than Azul. It's a really, really great component. So good pick.
Cool.
Number 9.
Moving on to my number 9 pick. This is a 2-player only game, and similar to his 2-player only Pyramid Poker. This one's been around for a while, and it's one of the most popular Uwe Rosenberg games, and it's Patchwork. I really like how this game plays and how quickly it moves, because just like Pyramid Poker, perhaps you just want to play it like best of 3 with your opponent, because it's really fun. It gets very tightly competitive, especially near the end. And, it's very abstract. You're just basically taking these tiles and trying your best to fill up your grid as much as possible, and, complete without any holes. And there are ways to get like single squares, but you have to be able to be the first pawn that crosses it. And it's basically a 1-track path that just keeps going and loops around until you get to the center. So once you get to the center, you're done for the rest of the game, and the rest of the players, who are still out can move and try to take more tiles. But final scoring points, you've got buttons are a currency in this game.
That's right. Yep.
And that's an interesting thing, because there's some that you can earn just from like moving, and others by like landing on things. And by spending or having more buttons, you can spend on the larger tiles, or maybe the more valuable tiles, because it has this income system where whatever buttons are on all of your tiles that you've already placed, whenever you cross over a button printed on the board, you get income. And sometimes if you go for that high income strategy, it can pay off later, because you might have better options, to fill in the gaps.
Because some of those tiles are expensive.
They are, but sometimes you're limited, and you just have to take what you can and do the best you can with it. But it's that tile laying, thing that Rosenberg's known for. I think it's the first of his tile laying games. I think
you're right. Yeah.
Aside from Feast for Odin, but even though Feast for Odin, I believe, came out before Patchwork, Patchwork was designed first.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, you might be right. I was going to say, I think it was his first designed polyomino game.
Yeah.
And he used to do like light games, like
he was working on Feast for Odin. He's like, hey, this tile thing is really cool. Let me just break that out for now, since he wanted to pump out a game in the interim of this long development of Feast for Odin, because that's a big game.
I never knew that. That makes total sense.
He pulled that out, and he's like, I'm just going to make this quick little 2-player thing, because this tile arrangement thing is really cool.
And I bet a lot of designers kind of do that. They'll reuse a mechanism, or they'll make a family weight game out of a mechanism. So
and I think that's great.
Yeah, really smart.
You get a light family game out of it, and you get a really heavy gamer game out of it.
Yeah, good pick. So, I like Patchwork a lot.
That's Patchwork. So Jay, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is an abstract game, of course, by it has to be by one of my favorite designers, Rainer Knizia.
Surprise!
Who makes these lists a lot. If you've listened to the podcast before,
right?
And this is a game that I don't really see a lot of people playing anymore. It's called Indigo, and
not Outdigo.
Not Outdigo. It's Indigo, as in the color Indigo, yeah. And the board looks like kind of a very elaborate sort of Arabian type carpet. And every person has these tiles that look like they're hexagonal tiles. Hexagonal? Yeah, hexagonal tiles that look like parts of the rug that you're kind of building. And the game starts out with gems that are kind of around the board, and then gems that are in the center of the board. And so on your turn, very much like Carcassonne, you have three tiles in your hand. You choose which tile to put down the board, and you can put it anywhere you want. Well, if you've ever played a game called Suro, that's very similar to this. Whenever you place a tile next to another tile that has this sort of ribbon pattern on it,
like a path.
Yeah, especially if you put it next to a hex with a gem, then the gem's going to follow the natural path that you've just laid with that tile.
Right.
And the goal is to try to build a path using these tiles that makes it back to your sort of area of the board, to like it exits the board in your section. But everybody has their own sections. And if you end up playing this game with like 4 players, then part of those sections are shared. So if you get a gem that's between your sort of gate and somebody else's gate, you both get points for that. So it's an interesting game where it's just simply you keep playing tiles until all the gems are gone off the game, and then you add up the gems. They're going to be worth 1, 2, or 3 points, and whoever has the most wins.
Cool.
But it's a really, really fun abstract game. It's a great intro game for new players because you can teach it in like 30 seconds. It's really fast. Yeah, I pretty much did. And it has this really great aesthetic because it looks like it's really well made. It's got a great table presence.
It looks like there's a theme, but there's not.
Yeah, it looks like there would be a theme.
Because it wouldn't be able to make this list if there was.
But it's kind of like, well, why would you be getting gems off of an Arabian rug? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. And I'm sure there's probably some like narrative text.
Maybe they have so many gems that they get stuck in the carpet.
that could work. I'm sure.
They get stomped into it and they're like, oh, it's time to go through the rug.
Yeah. But this could be anything. It could be like irrigation. It could be whatever. But Indigo is just a really fun game that I recently resurfaced in my collection, and I kind of realized like how good a game it was.
So do you know about when it came out?
Oh, this game is I'd say it's probably over 10 years old, because I think it was even maybe nominated for the Spiel, and it was probably before a couple of Rainer Knizia's more recent games.
Sure.
So I'd say 8 to 10 years, maybe.
Cool.
But you can still buy it. It's still in print.
Still in production.
Still in print. Yep.
Very
and
cool.
I think Ravensburger produces it. So that's Indigo. My number 9.
Number 8.
My number 8 is our first crossover.
Oh, is it?
Yes, and it's a 2-player game.
I'm guessing it.
It's Patchwork.
Yeah, it's Patchwork.
Yeah. So love this game. I mean, the theme is. And it's funny, when you read what the theme of the game is, where you're actually making a patchwork quilt, you see the components. It looks like a quilt. You've got buttons. I mean, it has all the ingredients that say this theme is working, right? Because you're stitching this quilt together with patterns. But the fact that all the different patches of cloth are like Tetris shapes,
that sort of pulls it out of being a quilt.
And you're kind of it's kind of a race element around the board in some ways, because as you said, the way that you get income, which is buttons, is either by crossing a button on this kind of sort of score track. It's not even a score track. It's really just a path. A path that's getting you, once you get in the center of the game ends, kind of thing. This success path. I don't know. Progression path.
There you go.
Does that work?
Path of progression.
Progression.
Progression de path.
So either you cross one of the buttons on your path of progression, and then you get income based on the patches that you've already built that have buttons on them, or you can actually skip your opponent, and for every square that you go to skip to get ahead of your component, you get paid for that as well in buttons.
Right.
So it's a game that's it's super unique. Like, there's not a whole lot of games that use that element of also like the last player continues to go until they've caught up to the first player. So that's neat, because sometimes you can get like 2 turns or maybe 3 turns in a row.
You've told me before that you love games where you can go as far as you want.
Yeah, and this is sort of that game.
Yeah.
But rather than it being like a tableau where you kind of are going around in the circle and that kind of thing, as soon as you get to the end of the path, the game's over. And the income that you generate from buttons is actually your score, minus, the squares that you haven't covered on your board.
Right.
So
which can be devastating.
This is I don't know if I've ever covered a whole board.
Yeah, I haven't.
I don't know that I have. I don't think I have.
But thinking back to Feast for Odin, like he literally prints number -1s on like every space.
One, yeah, and this is I think Patchwork is maybe -2.
I think it's -2.
Yeah, because a lot of scores are like negative, and you can win with a negative score.
Yeah,
and that's not uncommon. Patchwork. Love this game. It's my number 8, and I actually just recently played this with my wife. So
excellent.
Still big hit in my household.
And she loves that one.
Yeah, she does, and she loves quilting. So this kind of
that's perfect.
But again, it doesn't feel like that. So I bought it for the theme, but we play it for the actual game.
You bought an abstract game for the theme.
Yeah,
what is wrong with you?
I know.
My number 8 pick is a classic abstract game, and maybe one of the oldest games that you can still buy today, and it's called Go.
Okay, I thought this might end up on your list.
It's an amazing, really old, I believe it came from Japan, and essentially you've just got a huge grid board, and they have smaller versions with like 9x9, but the big one I think is like up to 20.
It's something big.
Yeah, there's the grid, and you have a 2-player game. There's black little disc pieces and then white ones. So one player plays the black, one player plays the white, and the board starts completely empty, and you just place them on any open grid intersection that you want. And the object there is to control more space of the board. It's an area control game. And if you can surround the opponent's piece or pieces, then they are removed from the board, and they're effectively usually automatically going to make that whole area yours. There are ways to sort of claim that area back, but if you are really skilled at this game, you can do a really good job of just sort of sectioning off a large portion of the board. And if you can play, and keep an eye on what they're doing, so that you can continually stay around their pieces, then you'll be able to still control it. And it's a really cool, like, surrounding type of game, but you just literally just place pieces. It has a following to this day. There's Go clubs, there's tournaments, and it's played worldwide to my knowledge.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
There's even like, when you place, there's like a methodology that you're supposed to do when you place it. Like, you don't just place it like however you want.
That's right.
You put it between your first and second finger.
That's right.
And then you like press it down.
Right.
And that's just...
Yeah, it's kind of like the traditional culture of the game in a way.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting, and it's about as abstract as you can get.
Yeah. I don't know if there is a more abstract.
I don't think there is a more abstract game than that.
Yeah, it's pretty plain, but and this one too. I mean, it's one of those games that anybody could start playing. But to actually be good at it, it's one of those lifetime.
It takes
games.
forever to get really, really good, and I'm not that good, but I've played a lot, and I'm not that good.
Yeah, I've never played this one. It's one that I'll definitely try at some point in my life.
We'll have to do that.
Yeah,
we'll have to do that.
Yeah, I've heard good things. So, yep, good pick. Go.
Number 7. My number 7 pick is a fairly new game. I think it came out either this year or last year, and it's also a polyomino game, fully abstract, and I really enjoyed it when I played it. It's called Project L. And if you have seen this, it's basically you're collecting these square pieces that have indentations so that the piece, like the polyomino pieces, can fit into it, and you're trying to basically complete them, kind of like contracts, right? You take it and then you attempt to complete it, but you only start with like 2 pieces, 2 really small, like 1 and 2 square length pieces, and so you only get 3 actions a turn, and you can either upgrade a piece or place a piece or claim a contract, or basically
like a master builder
action where you can place 1 piece on all of your collected contracts. And you can hold up to 4, but then you can't take any more until you complete one of them. But completing them also can earn you another piece, so you can immediately get another piece added to your pool, or it could just be for points. And so you have to balance whether or not you want to get the easier ones that perhaps just give you more pieces early, or do you want to snag some of the more difficult
5-point wins or 4-point
that
wins,
give you 5 or 6 points, and then just kind of work on them as you get them. Because once you've completed it, any contract, you get your tile pieces back. And they're like plastic. They're like really cool.
You know what they remind me of? They remind me of like chiclets.
Yeah.
But like they're long or they're L-shaped.
Different shaped chiclets.
But they're kind of like rounded a little bit.
Yeah, they have this like
a glossy
convex ends to these things.
Yeah, that's it.
And I feel like they even sort of wobble a little bit if they're just flat, because they're not just flat backed.
Yeah, they're really cool. They're really
the components
nice
in this are really, really nice, and the fact that all the contract like square pieces you get, or the the boards are all recessed boards.
Yeah,
it just feels like you're playing a high quality production.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've enjoyed it, and everybody who's played it really likes it. And it's a game that even during downtime, like, whoever's turn it's not, like, everyone just kind of chats and talks. It's like a great game to just like eat or drink while you're playing and just have a chat. It's very low key like that. And then
yeah, I like this game a lot, and I have played it recently as well. To me, the only part of the game that gets just a slightly bit bogged down is right near the end, because you're trying to like calculate if I can fit these pizzas in, because at the end, after everybody's played and it's like game over, you can actually give up points to place pieces that you still have in your supply.
Hoping that you'll end up getting more net points.
Yeah, so that everybody kind of like stops for like 2 minutes and like tries to do that math in their head right at the end. But
but I mean, aside from that, it flows very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only part of the game that just kind of like comes to a halt. This is one that I would introduce to any new player.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really, really great game.
So it's definitely, like a gateway game, and people like it because very reminiscent of like the Tetris pieces they're familiar with. Yeah. More so than Patchwork.
Definitely more so than Patchwork. I totally agree. Yeah, good pick. That was on my list of honorable mentions.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so my number 7 is a game that I was leaning a little bit on the theme of this one to think maybe this shouldn't be on the list or not. But then as I thought more about it, I said, no, this truly is an abstract game. And that is a game called Manhattan.
Really?
And Manhattan is a game. It's really a skyscraper building game. It's not really a city building game. And you really just have these different translucent blocks of different heights that are your buildings, essentially. And then you have a board that just has a grid of like 9 different squares. And then each of those squares has smaller squares in the middle of the grid. And then you have a hand of cards, and the cards, based on your sort of orientation to the board, will depict where you can actually build. So it may show you can build in the upper right section of the board. But for your opponent across the table, if they had the same card, they'd be building like in your lower left, basically. So what you're trying to do is it's really area control. You're trying to earn points in, I think, three different ways. One is at the end of each round, have the most buildings in a specific area. Another one is have like the tallest building of all the other buildings.
The Burj Khalifa.
Yes. And the other one I think is to control the majority of the territories within the whole board. So very abstract, very, it's like area majority / area control style game that could really be about anything. It makes it very interesting and tactical and really great, visually appealing to stack these big translucent blocks, because it ends up looking like a city. But the reason I said this as an abstract is I never feel like I'm building a city. I feel like what I'm doing is I'm trying to cut my opponent off to get majorities, or to
it's like it kind of reminds me of like just sitting around with as a kid in preschool with playing with blocks.
Yes.
It's like, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna build that, I'm gonna build this.
Yeah, it doesn't, the theme itself, I mean, you could just do blocks. So like you said, it wouldn't need to have a theme. So I love it because of the aesthetic. The theme certainly works with the game, but the mechanisms never feel like the theme to me. Right. So Manhattan is why it made my number 7.
Cool. That makes sense. Number 6.
My number 6 is our second crossover.
Okay.
And For exactly the same reasons you did, I chose Dragon Castle.
There you go.
I love this game. I love the tactical feel of the tiles coming right out of that bag. I like the fact that you kind of collectively, like, you engage everybody in the game from the first second of the game, because you dump this bag of tiles out and you say, okay, let's build this thing.
You got to build this thing.
So you're all like building this structure together, having fun, building the structure together. And then once you've done that, you explain the rules of the game, and then you start taking the tiles off and scoring. And it's a little deeper than some of the other games that we've mentioned, because you do have some of the scoring elements on your own personal board where you're trying to get heights, and you're trying to line up things, and you can trade in tiles to get the rooftops. And so there's a little more going on to it, and there's also some special abilities that you can throw in. But again, it feels like a tile placement game, a tile collection game, or set collection game.
It also, I think, has one criticism that people give it is it feels like solo multiplayer, because it absolutely does. Difficult to keep an eye on what other players are doing with their board, and like wanting to like prevent them from getting a certain color tile. And I don't know really how much interaction there really is as far as that.
I agree. I think if you're playing this 2-player, you could probably keep an eye on your opponent a little more.
Yeah, and 3 or 4, you're like, I don't know.
Maybe hose them a little by taking something they want.
Yeah, it's more just about trying to get the best that you can at the time that it's your turn.
Yeah, and really, if you're playing a 3 or 4-player game, it's not until the very end that you can affect the game, because you can sort of speed the game up or slow it down based on whether you pass your turn or not, because you can pass and start getting points.
Basically, once the first floor is revealed,
that's right. That's right.
Then any player can just, instead of taking a tile, take one of these like countdown.
Yeah, they're like points tokens. They're like,
and you get 2 points.
Yeah, I think they're worth like so many at first, and then they start getting less and less or something.
No, I think it's just 2 points.
Is it just 2? Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. It's limited based on the number of players. That's right. And so once that stack is done, then the game ends. Right. Yeah. So Dragon Castle, just an awesome game, a great table presence game. It's one of my favorite abstracts, and I don't think this is ever going to leave my collection.
Yeah, so, it's really great.
Yeah, I love it. And that was my number 6.
Very cool. My number 6 is another highly, highly abstract game, especially if you don't speak Chinese. Because this is, it's not a chess variant, because this actually came prior
on your list.
to chess. It's called Xiangqi.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah. I played this a lot when I lived in China for 6 months. And this is a game that everyone was playing. I mean, you'd see people playing it on the sidewalk, like at the parks. They have, you might have like a stone table and chairs at the park, and they have engraved in all these tables the board and the wooden pieces for Xiangqi.
That'd be so interesting to see that in culture.
It's amazing.
It's really neat.
I mean, I don't know. We don't even do that with chess here, but I mean, maybe some places do.
Yeah, but like to have that so inundated in the culture that you just see it everywhere. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool.
I mean, I'd walk down the street and I'm seeing a game, going on, and then they'd look at me because I'm the foreigner or whatever, and then I'd watch for a minute, and then I'd point out like a move that they should do, and they're like, "Oh, like this game." It's like, yeah, I kind of like games.
That's funny. That's funny.
But aside from the language barrier, like once you learn the game, it's fantastic. There's very unique pieces to this. It is based on somewhat of theme, because there's like history to it, of course. It's like the Warring States period of China, and you're got to protect the emperor. But then there's a story where when someone played it against the emperor, and he's like, I've conquered, or I've killed the emperor. Like he got mad and killed him. And so he made it illegal to call that piece the emperor.
Oh, that's some neat history. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, when I played it with you, it kind of felt like Chinese chess. But I
think people call it that.
I like it better than chess. It is more
interesting. Yeah. Not as many pieces as chess, if I can recall.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And a lot of the pieces are more limited than chess. Like there's like 4 pieces that, can't really leave half of the board, plus your, emperor or your leader piece that can only be in the temple, or his, house, and then his guards, his advisors. Yeah. And so those 3 pieces are stuck in that little area. And then you've got the elephant pieces to the side that are stuck on your side of the river. and then from there your horses that can go out, and then the equivalent of the queens, or maybe more like rooks. But some of my favorite pieces are the cannons, because this is a very unique piece to any game I've played, where they can move like a rook, but they capture by jumping a piece and then taking the piece behind it, no matter the distance between any of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're shooting over the piece in front and hitting the back.
Right, and it could be jumping your piece or it could be jumping an opponent's piece, but it has to jump over something to take something behind it.
Yeah.
And whatever it jumped stays there. Nothing happened to it.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting change to what normal chess chess players would be experiencing. And if you can get your hands on a copy, it's fantastic. And I mean, it's a 2-player game, and know that you're playing a very, very old, but very well known and popular game played by millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
China. And it's just fantastic. So.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game too. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I agree. I think those cannons are maybe the most deadly or dangerous in the whole game.
Some interesting strategies on setting them up, and then it's like surprise. Like it's like I'll set it up and point it at your emperor, and then you move a piece into it. It's like, well, now I get this, and now you're in check.
Yeah. And
then you move your piece out, and it's like, nope, can't do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I ever beat you at this game.
Either. No,
probably not.
No, probably won't.
Yeah, I probably won't actually. But it was good. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed learning this one.
Cool. Number 5. Moving on to number 5. So this is the top 5 of this list.
La creme de la creme.
These are the best of the best, the ones that people are going to be really interested in, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But again, I mean, this is top 10 anyway. Like, these are the best of the best anyway.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Yeah, I mean, there's none higher.
No, there's not.
That's how math works, I think.
I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it. So this is a more modern game for my list. And this is one that he sort of mentioned earlier, but it's not on his list. This is Azul, but I'm going with the sequel, Stained Glass of Sintra. I think the way that it works with the beauty of it, with the not the dice tower, but like the little collection of where the pieces are. It's like this glass cardboard piece, and the way that it's added, and the panes of glass that you kind of get, the variability of this game because of that in itself. And the pieces, I think, are more colorful or interesting looking.
I like them too.
Compared to the original Azul. And I can't speak for the third one or even the new one, Queen's Garden or whatever it's called.
Yeah, third one's great too. It's way more thinky, I would say, but
they're all good. I haven't played the third one, but the second one I really do like. The only caveat is if you're not really into strategy heavier type games, you might still want to introduce base game Azul.
I think so.
First.
I think so.
But because what happens with Azul is you kind of get bored after a while because it's the same setup and it's the same gameplay. And I mean, so is chess. So I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But
there's some
if you want something variable and something
and stuff,
that changes game to game, that's where I prefer the sequel, Stained Glass of Sintra. It's just a great concept of how you can pick tiles, which is the Azul method. You grab, one color from one little supply of 4, and it could be 1, 2, 3, or all 4 were one color if you're lucky enough. But then whoever takes, the rest that aren't taken are going to the middle, and whoever decides to take from the middle first takes the first player tile, but it's also worth a negative point. And so there's that, man, it's so valuable to take so many of that one color in the middle. Is it worth getting that -1? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Because then what you've done is open the door for everyone else to take from that pile with no other penalty.
Right.
So it's just a great mechanism.
Yeah. But you do get to go first the next round, which is a nice
first.
consolation prize. So.
Right, but you don't know what the next arrangement of tiles is going to be. But having first pick, because if that 4 of a kind, 4 colors comes out on one, you're taking that.
You're golden.
Yeah. So it's great. I recommend it. It's definitely right there in the abstract, and it's pretty new compared to anything else I just talked about.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love this game. And of the versions of the game, it's my favorite one too. My number 5 is a game that you probably haven't heard of before, but it's called Azul Stained Glass of Sintra.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Oh my gosh.
It's my number 5 too. You said everything. It's
You sneaky.
it's for all the same reasons.
This has never happened for us.
Not I don't think we've ever lined
Like
up
the exact
perfectly.
number.
Yeah, we may not have.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I love the original Azul. It's one of the games that I will teach new players as maybe a go-to game.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen players just buy it on the spot.
Yeah.
But for me, what I like a little bit more about stained glass is, I think, two main things. One is the variability of the board, as you mentioned, is really cool because you're kind of you're always randomizing sort of the panes of glass that come out that you're building these tiles to.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is you have that one extra chance to mitigate you having to take a bunch of like junk tiles at the end, because you have this it's called the glazier, I think is the piece that you're using to move across your different panes where you're placing tiles. But if it comes to your turn and you would normally be faced with taking a bunch of tiles that you can't use that will generate negative points, you can just decide to like move your glazier like all the way back, and then that'll skip your turn essentially. So that little tweak of manipulating that is, to me, what makes it superior.
Definitely makes a difference
to Azul, because Azul, if you plan it right, you can really hurt somebody in a regular Azul.
Yeah.
If you time out the turns. So that's the one sort of thing I don't like about the original Azul.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is prettier. These they look like little like Jolly Ranchers or like little candies, as opposed to the original, which looks more like tiles. And one thing, just because we're talking about abstract
like
games,
wall tiles.
Yeah. The theme of regular Azul is actually is more thematic than stained glass, because you're actually building a floor. You're actually placing tiles like you would place in a floor. You drop tiles and they break. Like, there's a lot of really good theming that they've put with the mechanisms, yet it never feels like that. Whereas stained glass is like, it's pattern building. It's like literally just pattern building.
But it is a pane of glass.
Yeah, but
you're
it's
building
like,
the glass panes.
It to me, it's like building glass pane. Like, I don't know. It just does it. It's like, I've laid tiles before, but I've never, I don't know. But so it's like, it's less abstract, but it's, to me, a better game.
I feel like it's the same level of abstract.
You think?
Personally.
No, I think it's more. No. So, but then the third one, actually, there's a fourth one out now. Right. The third one is like also super abstract and super thinky. And to me, it's almost too long a game at 4 players.
So they get progressively more.
They do. They get
strategically difficult.
Yeah, more complex. And although my wife's favorite is the third one, but it's only when we play 2 players, because you're just literally staring at the board the whole time and not talking, and
it's like too much if you want to have a conversation at the table.
Yeah, it's not like a coffee and talk type of game.
Coffee talk.
So my number 5 is Azul stained glass as well.
Can't argue with that. Number 4.
So my number 4 is a game that often gets compared to Azul.
Okay.
And that is Sagrada.
Yeah.
And especially the Sagrada stained glass version is super similar as far as theming to Azul stained glass, which is funny because
you can't pick the same game.
I know, but the games are, although abstract, they play very, very differently. So Sagrada is a dice placement game, and it's also a dice drafted game. You can actually play it 2 different ways. When you play traditionally with 4 players, one of the players is rolling all the dice. Then you do this sort of snake draft where first player gets first pick, and you just kind of go all the way till the last player, and then the last player gets a second pick, and then it goes backwards from that point.
Sure.
And when you take these dice, you have this sort of board, which is a grid in front of you. The grid has certain placement rules, like certain collars on different squares, that you have to make sure that the dice you place either matches that number, matches that collar, and you also have to put your dice on this board, sort of starting from a corner and then building adjacently from that point forward. So this is a game that starts out like, oh, this is a breeze. This is an easy game to play, no problem at all, and it gets hard really quick, and you start to just like stress about how in the world am I going to fit this dice where I need it to go, or you're just looking like, please don't pick that dice I need.
Yeah.
And there are some, these tool cards you can use to mitigate ways of placing your dice or swapping dice in or other things. But man, this is an intense game. It gets brain burnery. Right near the end. But that is a great feeling. I kind of love that feeling in games. And it's got a great solo mode. So Sagrada is not only an awesome abstract, but if you play more than 4 players, there's this other way of drafting where you have your own individual dice pool that I think adds to the game if you buy an expansion. So this one is going to be in my collection for a long time, and that's my number 4, Sagrada.
If you like this, have you played Calico?
No, I've heard
it's a lot like that.
Yeah.
And if that's the sort of feeling you like, where it starts out, oh, this is easy, and then by the end, you're like, ooh, I really have to get that. Don't take it. You know?
I've heard that about Calico.
It's very difficult.
It looks very harmless in the theming of like a quilt and cats.
Cat tokens and little buttons, and it's like quilt patterns. Cutesy. And you're like, oh, this will be cute. And then it's like, oh my God, this is grueling.
Oh, I'm about to shoot myself.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You'll like it. We got to play that one.
Yeah, I'd love to try it.
So my number 4 pick is a game that I think plays best at 2, but it can play up to 4. And it's a game that also has great table presence. It's called Minara. And is very abstract because, I mean, what is the theme there?
I don't even know. I don't even know what the theme is.
I don't know what the theme is.
You taught it to me.
I know. So you basically start with 3, like every tile in this game is like a random type
weird
of
shapes,
weird shape. And they have varying numbers of circles on them with colors. And you start with the table having 3 tiles laid on it. And as you draw these cards, they tell you how many of these columns that you're supposed to place and where, whether it has to be on different or the same and that kind of thing. And so you have your own little collection of like 5 or 6 of these columns at a time. And then you replenish from the bag after your turn. But you have to match the colors in the columns. Once any tile is complete, because all the colors are filled, you have to add a new tile somewhere on columns on this tower. And suddenly, you have to balance everything, and then you're building on top of other tiles. And, you sometimes you're like, there's no way this will work. I have to add another bottom tile at some penalty.
It's hard.
And then it forces you, in order to successfully win, to go 1 level higher to qualify to win. It's a game that as we play, as it gets bigger, this thing just looks crazy, and it's like, how is this even standing at this point?
Yeah, and you just, it's intense. You just feel like at any moment this thing's going to just come crashing down.
It looks really cool, and as you're playing, if you're in a convention or somewhere where there's people around, they're going to walk by and say like, what is going on? Like, that looks crazy, and how do you play? And it's like, oh, it's really easy. You just, you draw a card and you place these columns. And it's cooperative. I don't know if I mentioned that. So you are working together to try to build a tower, a certain number of levels, depending on your difficulty, player count, and that kind of thing. I think we've only officially beat it like twice, maybe.
And we when we played, was it medium? We definitely didn't play the hard level, but it was hard.
And I think we did win.
We did win, and then our variant was to try to deconstruct it without it making.
That was fun too.
That was a lot of fun, actually. I had a good time doing that.
So since we beat it, we're like, well, how do we take this thing down? And Jay recommended, well, let's do the game in reverse and see like how many of us can collect columns before it falls. You know?
It was a good experience, and this isn't an easy game to find either, right? No. It's hard to find.
It has very limited distribution. I think it's from Germany, and so if you're in Germany, then you can probably find it. But I think it definitely deserves another printing and certainly more distribution in America. So if you do see it, pick it up, because it's pretty rare.
Yeah, I think if you like stacking games like Rhino Hero, this is just the next level up, and to me a lot more strategic and fun.
Yeah, it's great. Great abstract.
Yeah, good pick.
Number 3. My number 3 pick is definitely an abstract game. It uses a board, much like Shang-Chi or Go, like I mentioned. It's 2. Well, I think you can play up to 4, but 2 is its best. It's called Tashkalar Arena of Legends.
Oh, okay. No, you know where I was. Okay, I'll save my guess for after you're done.
Tashkalar plays best at 2, in my opinion, but you have a faction that you can be. You have your own cards that have their own ability that allows different movement and way that you place your coins and stuff on the board. It is area control. It is not thematic, but it is like themed after I don't know, like fantasy, but it's a very plain looking board. It's very strategic. It's a lot of fun. It's by Vlada Chvátil, who made games like Codenames and Mage Knight.
Dungeon Pets.
So it's
Galaxy Trucker.
It's a good combination of accessible but also really deep and really strategic. And so if you're looking for that type of abstract, highly depth, a lot of strategy, look at Tash Galar. It's really fun. I've always had a good time with this. There are expansions and there are ways to like spice up the game with like new powers and new abilities that you can do. But it's fantastic.
Never played this one.
I really want to introduce this to you. I showed it to our other buddy, Jason, and
I've heard the name.
He liked it.
Does it have like a tiger on the cover or something? Or I can't. I'm trying to picture it.
I think it's more like a big muscly guy, holding stuff.
Okay, it's definitely not the one I'm thinking of. But yeah, I'd definitely try it.
Yeah.
Cool. That's your number 3.
Yes.
My number 3 is a 2-player game, and I mentioned I kind of kept card games off my list.
And then he breaks his rule.
I kind of break the rule here a little bit.
Before we go, what was your guess that
TAC?
You thought I was going to say TAC?
I thought you were going to say TAC, which may end up on the list. Who knows? Because it's a great abstract game.
Because he saw me looking at my bookshelf over here.
Yeah, so I stole a glance.
And he was trying to guess which ones it was going to be, and we had to cut it.
Yeah, so sorry if that's a spoiler. But this is a 2-player game, and it's the kind of game where you do have cards, but they're like the big like tarot size cards, and you're not playing them like a typical playing card game. It's more of a set collection game that you're using these cards for. And the theming is around geishas and trying to get geishas to visit your different locations, because the way the game's set in Japan is the geishas were kind of the entertainers of the time. So you might have geishas that, play music, or they dance, or they are the best at making tea, or whatever. And you're trying to collect these geisha cards in these different rows to try to get majorities. Because you might have a card that has a 2 on it, and that means that there's only 2 of those in the entire deck of cards. So if you can get 2 of those cards, you're absolutely going to get the majority and get a token that sort of slides to your side. But if you might be able to sort of discard one of those 2s, and then as long as you have the 1/2, you're gonna get it. So there's really interesting ways to use these cards based on the number of cards and the majorities. But the favorite and kind of the coolest part of this game is you have these 4 tokens, and on your turn, you must use that token to do your action. So one of the tokens is you take 4 cards, you split it into 2 cards each, and then you offer them to your opponent, and they take one of your hands of cards. And then you both play the cards that you're left with.
So you don't choose for them, they choose?
No, they choose. Then there's another where you have 3 cards, and they get to pick one, and you get to use the other 2. Another one is you get to discard a card out of the game, and another one is you get to hide a card secretly that gets revealed at the very end of the round. The game plays really quick. It's that mechanism of choosing those tiles, because you can only use that mechanism once per game, and everybody has to use it. You're playing 4 turns throughout the entire game.
Wow.
And then the game is over.
Wow.
So it's fast, but it has all these really cool elements to it. And it may be my favorite 2-player game, Hanamakoji. And it's one of those games that it's really easy to teach. But when I introduce this to someone, they're like, I can't believe that a game with like this few cards and only these 4 actions can have this much depth to it.
And how do you say it?
Hanamakoji.
Hanamakoji.
And there's also there's like another name for this game. I think it's Empress Ward does these games that has like I was going to say a ninja theme, but it's not. It's just it's a male theme that's similar to the geisha theme. I think it's called like Jing Academy or something similar to that. You'd have to look it up. But there's also some expansions and stuff. So Hanamakoji is my number 3.
Number 2.
The game that is the most recent addition to my collection, and also a game that came out actually this year. I think it was this year, at least in the US, is a game called Four Gardens. And Four Gardens is I'm not even sure what the theme is, to be honest, which is why it made my list. But what it is you're basically collecting different resources to pay for these sort of landscape cards that you add to a set that you score points for. And the way that you're collecting these resources is you actually have this very tall pagoda that sits in the middle of the table between all the players. And whatever side of the pagoda you're facing has the different resources on it. Like there's grass and stone and water, and it may just be those three. And so the cards that you play can either be used to get resources by playing the cards, or you can actually turn one of the levels of the pagoda.
Rotate it.
Yeah, rotate it. So if you rotate the bottom, you rotate everything above it, right? And then or if you rotate the top, you're only rotating the very top level. And then you get resources from the top down. They cascade.
Got it.
So it could be, and you're limited in how many resources you can collect. So it could be that the way you rotate it, you'll never get those resources at the bottom because you've just filled up your supply with, everything from, levels 1 and 2 or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very abstract. It's, it's pretty thinky, but family weight thinky, I would say. Plays really smoothly. It's got that really awesome table presence. It's beautiful production with the painted landscape cards. And I've really enjoyed playing this one a lot. So that's why it's really so high up on my list. And like I said, one of the newest games on my list. That's my number 2, Four Gardens.
That's awesome. It sounds pretty
You'd
cool.
like this one.
I think I would like that.
You definitely like this one, yeah.
I do want to play that. Do you have a copy?
I do.
Then we'll have to try that
I
one
do.
out.
Yeah, and it plays good with all player counts. I've played it with 2, 3, and 4, and it plays great with all of them.
We've got a big 2-player list of games that we need to just have a day.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do a 2-player con.
That's right. Why not?
I'd be up for that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and this is also a Dice Tower Essentials, so I think Arcane Wonders. Maybe put this one out too.
Very cool.
If I'm not mistaken. But
my number 2 is it also is a game that had very limited release in America. And it's difficult to get because of that. You can find it in Europe. The original versions of this you can find easily, but the specific one that I'm going to pick is difficult. It's called Ubongo 3D. I got to play this with a friend of mine, and the 3D version, I think, just soars above any of the others. The pieces that you have are not just one like X and Y, it's X, Y, and Z as far as the shape of the pieces.
Okay.
And of course, they're all different. They look different. They're not anything that I can even describe. But when you play this game, the player rolls a die and it tells you which card that you have to, which graphic you're trying to make. And then you collect those pieces. And so there is a solution. And from those pieces, everyone starts at the same time, and they're trying to build whatever the image is. And, you're trying to fill all the space that's printed on the card, but everything has to be at the end, level, 2 levels, even. And so, you might be able to cover it up or have an extra piece, or cover it up and maybe you're on 3 levels. It's not good. You didn't solve it yet. You have to be able to arrange these 3D puzzly pieces so that it fits on the bottom and not anywhere outside of that grid. And so that, at the end of this, there's only 2 levels, just like a full 2-level thing. And
this is based on the perspective you're looking at it and how you're matching the card image to it or something?
So you're looking at it from a face down point of view.
Okay.
And so you're placing it so that nothing outside of that face down map is covered. And then from there, it has to go 2 levels up.
Hi. Okay. Interesting.
So think of it as a weirdly shaped building.
I played a game that was it was like Blocus 3D.
Blocus, yeah.
Or Blocus 3D that reminds me of what you're describing. Only that was slightly different. You're kind of scoring based on what you're seeing.
So this is it's really interesting. I had a great time playing this, and I really want a copy if I can find one. But obviously that's part of the problem. Yeah, if anyone has a copy or finds it, let me know. Send it over to me. I'd love to have that.
Yeah, there's another game like that I'm thinking of. I think it's called Roomus or something, or Roomus 3D.
Yeah.
Out of print, and it's got a similar concept that I thought was awesome. I don't know why.
And it doesn't take long to play, and it plays well for young players as well. I think his son, who's 7 or 8, loves it to death.
Yeah, and Obongo's still a really popular game, and they even have an app for it and all that. So you think that they would reprint that.
It's a very popular series, and I'm like, why is 3D not available?
Yeah, you'd think it'd be maybe the most popular.
Again, to me,
version.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best version.
I'll definitely try this one.
Ubongo 3D. Yeah, good luck finding it.
Yeah. I'll have to wait till they actually do reprint it.
If they do, who knows?
Yeah.
We're going to start a campaign, a letter writing campaign.
Yeah. What I was going to say, what is it called? What is it?
A petition?
Change.org.
Oh yeah, change.org petition. So if all our fans listening to the podcast start a petition, and let's get it rolling.
Let's do it. I'll sign it.
All right. Honorable mentions. Before we go on to the number 1 pick, we like to do some honorable mentions for games that didn't quite make it for whatever reason, just barely out of the top 10, maybe top 15, something like that. These are unnumbered, at least mine are. So some that I considered but didn't quite make would be Chess, because it's fantastic, classic, can't go wrong. Santorini. But
that made my honorable mention too. I love that game.
It's great, and at times it feels very abstract, but other times you're like, this is a little thematic.
Especially when you're using those god powers, it does feel a little thematic.
Right. The more stuff they add into the game, and I don't know, it can get there.
That's why I didn't include it. Same
Photosynthesis, which you already mentioned at the beginning of this. And it is, like you said, half the time people call it abstract, half the time they think it's thematic. And so I was like, well, since I came up with so many, I just was like, well, let's just mention it.
I
instead.
Agree. Yeah. What else do you have?
Actually, 2 more. One is Cloud City.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. The reason that didn't make it for me is because you feel like you're actually building a city.
Yeah, you do feel good about the little walkways and paths you make
but you're still just building blocks. You're still just building blocks.
But it's just blocks and little pieces.
Yep, that was one of mine too. Yep.
The last one I was going to mention is Arial. And that is a really fun Tetris game where it's up to 4 players and you rotate the block cards, but it also affects everyone else's perspective because everyone's facing it from right angles, and you can choose the cards, which then you take the piece and you drop them down so that they can fit into your little Tetris board. There is somewhat of a theme. It's supposed to be about a Portugal party, like a street festival.
Yeah, no, it's Tetris.
I mean, but it doesn't come through. It's essentially Tetris.
Totally Tetris. This one I own, but I only played it once, so that's why I didn't make my list. But
it's great.
If I played it more, I probably would have.
I recommend Oriole if you have a chance.
Yeah, another one I picked was Kingdom Builder.
Okay.
Because it dances so close to because literally you're drawing a card that shows a territory on the board, and you're placing 3 buildings on the territory.
Yeah.
But it does kind of have some theme to it a little bit. Some of your
building a kingdom.
Yeah, you're building a king. Yeah, you're building a kingdom. You're trying to connect roads to or to certain castles and things. So very abstract in my mind, but I was kind of close to the line for me.
I have a question for you on towing the line type of thing. Where do you think Carcassonne fits as far as abstract or not abstract?
Boy, it kind of, I think for me, it probably would lean a little more on the abstract side.
Yeah.
Now I will say that some of the new versions of Carcassonne definitely were with the thematic. My favorite,
because of the new game rules or expansion pieces, or because of the art?
Because of the game rules. So my favorite version is Carcassonne Amazonas. And it actually incorporates a race into the game, to where you're going down the Amazon River and things like that. So, although it's very, very abstract, you're still building out a jungle in this case, because it has that little bit of an element of racing to it too, and you see the Amazon growing. It feels a little more thematic than the other plain Carcassonne.
Just curious what you thought.
Yeah. So for me, Suro is one. I love Suro. It's great because it plays up to 8 players, but I like Indigo which plays almost the same, a little bit better. So that's why Indigo made my list, not Suro. Ingenious, another Reiner Knizia game, is pure abstract, a lot of fun, but it's not really as popular today. It came out several years ago. I still like it, but it definitely feels more like, not chess, but like a very, very classic abstract. So I wanted to kind of put in some more recent games. And then the last one was Blocus.
I call it Blockus.
Yeah, Blockus. I
almost put that on my list.
Yeah, this almost made it. The thing is, every time I play this game, I'm like, this is a really great game. And you have Tetris pieces, different sizes. You're trying to get all your pieces out to win the game.
Everyone starts in a corner. And you have to place your next piece that's diagonal to any other
right to a piece you've placed. It's got a lot of cool strategy. You can cut people off. You can kind of gain areas. And it's still super popular.
It's language independent. We play this a lot in China with folks, and you don't really need to be able to explain much.
Yeah, this is one you can teach in 30 seconds. Play super. It's a great hit with everybody. And then the last one is Rose King, which is a great little Cosmos 2-player game. Came out in the 2-player line. A lot of people don't talk about this one, but it has a little bit of a similar Go mechanic where you're placing like white and black pieces on the board. You can kind of flip other people's pieces to kind of count.
Othello.
Similar to Othello. And then the way you're scoring is you're multiplying the area times the number, and that's kind of how you do your exponential scoring. So really cool little game, Rose King, that doesn't get a lot of love. So that made my list for
very cool.
Yeah, honorable mentions.
Cool. Well, that's all of mine. So I think we're ready to talk about our number ones. Number one. The moment everyone's been waiting for, to find out the number one pick for best abstract game.
Yep.
He's probably already knowing what I'm going to pick, but
I have a suspicion.
He has a pretty good suspicion, is my suspicion.
Yeah, although I don't think I knew this was your number one, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I guess I've played this pretty recently and more often than the others on my list, and every time I play, I'm just more impressed by it, and that is Tak.
Yeah.
Tak is a relatively new game that is a variant of these Go and Xiangqi and chess and these kinds of things. In fact, one person I was teaching it to was like, it's kind of like reverse chess because you're adding your pieces to the board before you get to use them. You know, like chess, you've already got everything laid out, or checkers, everything's already laid out, and you just have to move them. In Tak, you place pieces on empty spots, or you can move your pieces that are already out that you control. The unique thing in this game is that you can jump or land on other players' pieces or your pieces, and you create a stack. And when you move that stack, you can drop the stones, I guess, what they call them.
Yeah.
You can drop them from the bottom on each space that you move, from in one direction, but you don't have to drop like all of them, and you can go as far as it'll let you with that stack, but you ideally want to keep your color pieces on top so that then you control more of the area. Essentially what you're trying to do in the game is connect a continuous like path or road orthogonally connected of your flat stone pieces from one side of the board to the other, and it could be either side, like could be the ones that you and your opponent are at, or the ones that are on the sides. So in any way that you get a valid path that you control from one side to the other, then you win. And it's one of those games that, like Go, it has a simple rule set, but once you start playing, it has an enormous amount of depth. And there's actually a whole book that I own that's the compendium of Tak. And it explains, just like chess, there's different names for different positions and different moves and all sorts of stuff with this game. It's really taken off. I don't know how big the tournament competitive scene is, but I know it's out there and it's pretty big, and you can actually compete online. And I know this because my buddy does this, and he's always bringing his Tak board with him, and he's laying them out, and he's basically trying to puzzle out the best move on this online game he's playing with another opponent.
Interesting.
And so he's like, all right, this is my board. And then he's like trying things and he's like, oh, there it is. That's what I need. And then he does it on this thing. But even still, like, there's hundreds and hundreds of players that are higher ranked than he is.
Yeah, I when I played this game here with you, I thought it was really clever. It's amazing because it feels like a classic game, but it literally came out 4 years ago, something like that.
Very soon.
And you don't see a lot of games that come out that have that feel, that are that good, that have never existed before.
And it's a pure abstract.
Yeah, and I read somewhere that they created this game based on a game that was mentioned in like a book of fiction.
Yes.
Where they described this game called Tack, and then somebody actually designed the game.
He did.
The author.
The author did.
Wow, that's just wild. He's an author and a game designer.
That's right. He had this game that he made up for his book series, and then he decided to make it.
Yeah, that's wild.
And then it took off. I mean, how often will that happen?
And the pieces, the components of this game look fantastic.
They're really nice.
Really, really. Thick,
it's the kind of game that
pieces.
you can really upgrade infinitely, just like chess.
I'd say this is a gift game. This would be a great Christmas gift. I think it'd be a great like coffee table game.
Yeah. Just always leave it set up.
Yeah, it really fits that bill, I think, a lot. And it reminds me a little bit of Quarto, which is similar with a lot of the chunky pieces and building a line and stuff. But this is definitely more advanced.
The subtitle to the game is actually Tack, a beautiful game.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So if you're looking for it, that's what it's called.
Yeah, I like that one. Good pick.
Thank you.
Good pick. My number one is a game that is also fairly new, and this is a game that tries to have a lot of theme in it, even with the expansions. But really, the theme never comes through, and that is Tiny Towns.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
The theme doesn't really.
Yeah. You're supposed to be this architect building these different city buildings, and the way the game plays though is you have this sort of grid board. Everybody's got a grid board.
It's like 4x4.
Maybe slightly bigger than that, but it's fairly small. And you have a bunch of cards that are variable. The game comes with actually a lot of variety, but you've got typically you play the starting game. And each of the cards represents a building that you're going to build on your grid using a specific type of material,
like resource patterns.
Yeah, in a pattern, right? Yeah. So you might have like an L-shaped building that represents the cathedral, and you have to build it with 2 marble, 1 stone, and one whatever the other thing is.
Gold.
Who knows?
Yeah,
they're just cubes. And the way it works is on your turn, depending on the number of players, one person will be sort of like the master builder. They will choose which of those materials they want to use. So they'll say marble, and everybody has to build marble that time. So as you're trying to build these buildings, what happens is when you've completed a building pattern, you actually then take those cubes off your board, and you put the actual building, which is a separate pile of wooden pieces.
They're like uniquely shaped and colored buildings.
Yeah, but they only take up I think they only take up 1 space.
Yeah.
But you have to place it in one of the spaces that one of those cubes previously occupied, basically.
Right.
And the way that scoring works is, you'll get points for farms that are next to certain buildings. You'll get points for churches that are surrounded by, other types of buildings, or if you're next to a well, you get extra points. So it's all very, very abstract.
The cards make not only the resource and pattern variable, but the scoring method.
Scoring as well. That's right. But this is a really clever little game. It's similar to Sagrada at the very end. It starts getting really tight, really thinking strategic.
It's an AEG game.
That's right. But it's the kind of game where there's a ton of variety in the game. It's great for new players who've maybe not played modern board games, but that can identify very easily with sort of Tetris type patterns and little building blocks. And it plays really quick too. This is one where a lot of times you'll play minutes. You'll play it, and then everybody's like, "Let's play it again," because I want to get a better score. For me, Tiny Towns is at the top of my list. It's also one of my wife's favorite games, so I played it fairly often, and that's what made my number one.
Hey, and if you want to learn how to play with all the rules, I have a tutorial for it.
Including the expansions.
No.
I'll edit that. Sorry, I had to do it.
You were on the gun with that, man. No.
I was waiting for it.
This is just the base game. But I do teach like the solo mode and some of the variants included in the base game.
And there are a lot.
There are variants.
There are a lot.
So I do teach everything that's in the rules for the base game.
Well, the thing is, even the expansions, like it's like critters. You're adding like these little animals to your town, but still, I've heard it's super abstract. Like even with that, they're trying to really double down on that theme. But for me, it's just a game that you acknowledge what it is. You build a bunch of patterns and you just have fun puzzling it out.
Yep.
So
it's fun. I like it.
So it's a fun list.
Yeah.
Yeah. We quite a few crossovers. Maybe 3 or 4.
About 3,
something like that. So good.
So let us know what you think of our choices, and if you have your own top 10 list, feel free to share those in the comments below. And if you're on YouTube and you want to listen to this in your car or take it on, then definitely check it out on any of the streaming platforms. And if you want to see us on video and maybe see what the box arts look like and that sort of thing, and if you're streaming, then check it out on our YouTube channel called Meeple Mentor, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, and I'd really love to hear in the comments if there's any game that you think we just totally missed that should belong in any collection.
Some glaring omission.
Yeah, or one that maybe we just haven't heard of and we'd like to play. So.
Well, that's the thing. Like all of these lists we make are games, at least for me, is ones I had played.
I think I pretty much own most.
Like I have to play them, and some games I just haven't played. So I'm sure there's stuff like that where people are going to say, "Well, you got to try this." And, maybe I'll try it. Maybe it'll make the list next year.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because some of these are just definitely worth repeating because they're just coming out with so many games every year, and they just seem to keep getting better and better.
I think some of our top 10s need to be redone, like on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I was just thinking that recently too.
So we'll talk about it. And hey, if you have a preference on what top 10 lists you want to see us redo,
welcome those ideas below too.
Yeah, for sure. So that's it for today. Unless you have anything else for us.
Yeah, no. Thanks for listening, everybody. And again, I'm Jay.
And I'm Jared.
And thanks for listening and watching.
Yep, this has been the Mentor Minutes podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.